Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today we'll be reacting to another Napoleonic video. Napoleon defeated Aspern 1809. I will go ahead and say apologies. Feeling kind of under the weather, but things will not stop. Not just because we're feeling under the weather. You know how many people felt under the weather going to Russia? We haven't got to that point yet. But let's just jump into it. I'm glad you're here with me. Hit that subscribe button if you love history, just like I do. Let's learn together. Echo.
March collaboration, supported by our sponsor, Osprey Publishing. In 1809, France, under Napoleon Bonaparte, was the most powerful nation in Europe.
Some could say the world.
But the French Emperor's invasion of Spain and Portugal the previous year had failed to deliver the easy victory he'd expected. And with many of Napoleon...
People are going to come back with me. I know, we're going to rewind it. We're not going to miss this, but what I just said. Some people are going to say Great Britain. And you could be right. It's splitting hairs for me.
...to deliver the easy victory he'd expected. And with many of Napoleon's best troops and commanders now tied down in Spain, an old enemy prepared to challenge France once more.
The court of Vienna is behaving very badly. It may have cause to repent.
Austria.
To Joseph. That's his brother.
Austria had been...
At least I think that's his brother.
...preparing for war with France since her last humiliating defeat at Austerlitz in 1805. Now, with Napoleon busy in Spain and a British promise of cash subsidies, plus a supporting attack in northern Europe, it looked like the ideal time to strike. This time, Austria's armies would be led by Archduke Charles, Emperor Francis's younger brother. At 37, he was 2 years younger than Napoleon, but already had 15 years' experience of high command. And
I believe he held his own on the Germanic front. Remember, I'm hoping I'm remembering this right. We had the Germanic front during the First Coalition, where he kind of held his own while Napoleon was kind of taking care of northern Italy.
And he was learning from past defeats. He'd begun to reform the Austrian army along French lines, copying Napoleon's corps system and introducing new infantry tactics.
A lot of people copied his corps system, though.
In the Napoleonic Wars, infantry fought in close order, packed together, standing shoulder to shoulder. But why present such an easy target for the enemy?
I love this. I appreciate it. But we're going to put a little annotation here to go see this video. We've already reacted to this. I did not know that this was its own subset of this video. So if you guys want to see how Napoleonic tactics, go watch that video. But we're just going to go ahead and skip back to the campaign.
Complex drill. Napoleon much more maneuverable. Napoleon, warned by his spies that Austria was preparing for war, left Spain and raced back to Paris, arriving on the 24th of January 1809. The French army in Germany, commanded by Marshal Berthier, would need urgent reinforcement. So Napoleon summoned units from Spain, called up young conscripts, and soldiers from his German allies in the Confederation of the Rhine. La Grande Armée was no longer the finely honed instrument of 1805, but with Napoleon at its head, it was still a formidable force.
Oh yeah.
Archduke Charles ordered diversionary attacks in Poland and northern Italy, but launched his main attack against France's ally, Bavaria, on the 10th of April. It came a week earlier than Napoleon had expected and caught the French Emperor by surprise. Charles was relying on a rapid advance, but a last-minute change of plans, torrential rain, and a slow-moving baggage train slowed progress to a crawl. Marshal Berthier was a brilliant chief of staff to Napoleon, but an indecisive field commander. His forces were too widely dispersed, and Marshal Davout's Third Corps was dangerously isolated at Regensburg. Charles ordered his corps to converge and destroy it.
I like how their corps is spelled with a K. Different. Obviously, I know why. It's the Austrian translation to the system, but
on the 17th of April, Napoleon arrived at Donauwörth to take over command. He immediately ordered Davout to withdraw from his exposed position. It was too late for him to escape without a fight. Davout's Third Corps was one of the best in the Grande Armée, and in a fast-moving battle across wooded hills, the heroes of Auerstadt threw back the Austrians. Despite the heroism of General Major Liechtenstein, badly wounded, leading his troops forward. Third Corps escaped the encirclement. The Battle of Teugn-Hausen was the start of Napoleon's so-called four-day campaign. First, he used Marshal Lefebvre's Bavarian 7th Corps and a provisional corps under Marshal Lannes to drive a wedge into the Austrian army.
was the just curious, just on semantics here, was the Bavarian 7 Corps the 7th Corps of Bavaria, or was that like an annex corps of the French Armée, which was also the 7th Corps? Does that make sense?
Then he pursued its left wing towards Landshut, believing he was following the main Austrian army. French troops and their German allies stormed the town's bridge to win a hard-fought victory. But Napoleon realized that Archduke Charles was not at Landshut, and that, once again, he'd left Marshal Davout to face the main enemy force.
Poor guy.
Sending Marshal Bessières in pursuit of the Austrian left wing, Napoleon swung north, falling on the Austrian 4th Corps at Eckmühl. The French and their German allies won their 4th victory in as many days. But Charles's main force was still intact, and hoping to keep it so, he ordered a rapid retreat across the Danube. The French pursued, storming the walled city of Regensburg, which they knew as Ratisbon, with its vital stone bridge. Napoleon put Marshal Lannes in charge of the assault. When the attack faltered, Lannes threatened to lead the next charge in person, and his men, suitably chastised, took the city.
Wow.
During the siege, Napoleon was hit in the foot by a spent bullet, causing widespread alarm, but it
That's interesting.
proved to be a superficial wound.
Because one thing that we do know, any wound back then, of course, Napoleon would receive the best possible treatment of the day during that time. But still, infection is real. Disease is real. Napoleon evaded death so many times so far, not to count the assassination attempts, the disease. There's been cases of bubonic plague. It's truly interesting, isn't it? How some people are spared.
Stubborn Austrian resistance had allowed Archduke Charles and his army to escape across the Danube. Napoleon had cut the Austrian army in half, but both sections now retreated in good order towards Vienna. Napoleon led his forces in pursuit, detaching Lefebvre's Bavarian Corps to deal with a popular revolt in Tyrol, and Third Corps and the Württemberg 8th Corps to guard his line of communications. Charles chose not to defend the capital, which surrendered on the 13th of May after a short bombardment.
I just want to take a step back real quick, and let's go back here. We'll come right back. Just with like Tyrol being the center of this conversation, his empire at this time, the French Empire, is just stretched so thin. There's not a ton of nationalist French population. Comparatively, sure, it stacks up against places like Austria or Russia, but not enough to take all these power vacuums out of from the HRE, as well as Iberia, and continuously holding garrisons on different ports, as well as the spread of influence on Eastern Europe. It's a ticking time bomb. And I know you know this, and I know this, but this is a ticking time bomb for things to go wrong, because you can only spread out specialist units so far. And those specialist units degrade over time. They never upgrade. They only degrade. Because the way this is set up, coalitions are set up, it's just so much going at you at once. It's just insane to me.
Instead, Charles and the Austrian army lay in wait across the Danube. Napoleon was now down to 80,000 men, facing 110,000 Austrians.
He's been in this situation before, so let's see what he does.
Charles's army had fought bravely and well throughout the campaign, but Napoleon still had a low opinion of Austrian troops and decided to attack.
I don't think he has a high opinion of any force. Maybe the Russians, but we've heard what he said about the British troops, how they're not anywhere like they would be on sea as they are on land, or vice versa. But besides the Russians, I don't think he's respected any army. The cannon all men are equal. That's true.
On the night of the 20th of May, French engineers hastily built a series of floating bridges between the river islands of the Danube, and French troops began to cross. By noon the next day, Napoleon had most of Massena's 4th Corps and his cavalry across the river, about 24,000 men and 40 guns, holding the villages of Aspern and Essling. Napoleon expected the Austrians to retreat once more, and that he'd only face a rear guard. But reports soon arrived that the entire Austrian army was advancing against him in 5 attack columns, 90,000 men and 300 cannon.
Oh no.
The situation got even worse. The Austrians began to float heavy barges and obstacles downriver to smash through the flimsy French bridge.
That's insanely strategic. I did not expect that.
Each time, Napoleon's only supply route was cut off for several hours, causing critical delays to the arrival of reinforcements and ammunition.
Wow.
The battle began around 2:45 p.m. as infantry of the Austrian 1st Column attacked Aspern. The village was soon under attack from 3 sides. General Molitor's French garrison clung on desperately, fighting hand-to-hand in the streets and suffering 50% casualties. To support the defenders of Aspern, Napoleon ordered cavalry to charge the Austrian 3rd Column. But they could not break through the Austrian infantry, closed up in their battalion mass formation. At 6 p.m, Archduke Charles ordered General Bellegarde's 2nd Column to take Aspern at any cost. Charles himself rode among the front ranks, urging the men forward. In ferocious fighting, the Austrians took the village. Napoleon immediately sent in newly arrived reinforcements to recapture it. About the same time, the Austrian 4th Column began its attack on the village of Essling, where Marshal Lannes had taken charge of defences while he waited for his own corps to cross the Danube. The first Austrian assault was repulsed. The veteran French cavalry commander General d'Espagne led his cuirassiers in pursuit, but was hit by grape shot and died of his wounds.
Wait, was that general?
French cavalry commander General d'Espagne.
That's the 2nd general on 2 different campaigns that have died. Remember in the Spanish one, I forget. the name, but they also lost a general during the retreat back to the boats for the British. So heavy losses.
Led his cuirassiers in pursuit, but was hit by grape shot and died of his wounds. Around 9 p.m, the Austrian 5th Column finally arrived in position and made its first attack against Essling, which was thrown back by Lannes' troops. As night fell, firing died out across the battlefield, and men got what rest they could among the dead and the wounded.
Day 2. More troops.
Overnight, 2nd Corps and the Imperial Guard crossed the Danube to reinforce Napoleon's army, which now numbered 71,000 and 150 guns. But then the bridge broke again, leaving Davout's 3rd Corps still waiting to cross.
Can we not build a bigger, better bridge?
Nevertheless, Napoleon decided to attack, using 2nd Corps to break the Austrian centre. But first, Aspern would have to be retaken. Heavy fighting broke out in the village before dawn. By 7 a.m, it was back in French hands. At Essling, fresh Austrian attacks were fought off by General Lasalle's cavalry and units of the Young Guard. With both flanks secure, Napoleon launched his main attack in the centre with Lannes' 2nd Corps. Austrian guns poured fire into the advancing French ranks. General Saint-Hilaire, leading the attack, a hero of Austerlitz and Jena, had his foot blown off.
Jeez.
A wound that proved fatal.
Yeah. That's 3. That's 3 in the last video and a half. Generals.
Archduke Charles sent his Grenadier Reserve forward to strengthen the line. The French infantry, under torrential fire, began to fall back. At this critical moment, the French bridge over the Danube was broken again, halting the vital flow of reinforcements and ammunition to Napoleon's army. By 2 p.m, the French had been driven out of Aspern once more. Heavy fighting continued in Essling, which was briefly captured by the Austrians, then retaken by the Young Guard. Napoleon knew his army could do no more.
Backed out.
At 4 p.m, he ordered his exhausted cavalry to make a last charge to keep the enemy at bay, then gave the order to retreat. Archduke Charles, whose own army had suffered huge losses and was low on ammunition, was content to watch the French withdraw to the island of Lobau. In the final moments of the battle, Marshal Lannes, one of Napoleon's finest commanders and closest friends, was hit by a cannonball that smashed both his legs. He died of his wounds a week later.
4.
It was a deep blow to the Emperor.
Wow. Maybe not a general, but still, what a
The
personal.
two-day Battle of Aspern-Essling was Napoleon's first major defeat, caused by his overconfidence and hasty planning. Both sides suffered heavy losses, and Napoleon avoided a much greater disaster only because of the exhaustion of the Austrian army.
Wow.
The French Emperor had learned new respect for the Austrians. Under Archduke Charles, they had fought bravely, with greater confidence, organization, and leadership. Within days of his defeat, Napoleon had summoned reinforcements to join him on the Danube, and begun planning his revenge. If you'd like to learn...
Wow. A lot happening in Austria. That was a devastating blow for the French army. For morale reasons, but also for simple casualty reasons. Lost Lan. You lost cavalry commander general. Lost another general. Not good. Not good. This is one of those things. When you have an empire, domino effects happen. Momentum is real. Momentum is not with France right now. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. Sorry, like I said, feeling a little under the weather, but still wanted to put this out for you guys. I appreciate every single one of you. Please leave a video recommendation or a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And peace out. Bye-bye.